Hello, I'm Ellie, and today I'll be giving my book talk on the novel The Color Purple by Alice Walker, and hopefully convince you to read it because I thought it was a really good book, and I don't know, I just really liked it. The book is in the historical fiction genre and takes place between the early to mid 1900s, like between World War I and World War II, because it's briefly mentioned in the book. And it takes place in the South during this time period and focuses mainly on the lives of African American families during this time. Alice Walker uses a unique Alice Walker uses a unique writing style for this story, writing it entirely through letters, also known as an epistolary novel. Because of this, the story is written entirely in a first-person point of view. This writing style enhances the novel in multiple ways, one being that it gives the viewer a clear picture of the South during the time through the lens of a Black woman. Alice Walker uses a unique writing style for this story, writing it entirely through letters, also known as an epistolary novel. Because of this, the story is written entirely in a first-person point of view. This writing style enhances the novel in multiple ways, one being that it gives the viewer a clear picture of the South during the time through the lens of a Black woman. Our main character Celie is the main source of narration throughout the story, and as I will explain later, her life is filled with unending hardships. As we read her letters, we can see the true emotions of her character, which you wouldn't really get if the story was written in a third-person point of view. Celie's letters are written more like diary entries than anything, so by doing this, it kind of introduces the reader to her own personal dialect. For example, instead of the words like we, as in we are going to the store, she would use words such as us, like she would say us are going to the store. This gives the reader a clearer view of the South and the dialect they used at the time. And it also sort of just enhances the realistic nature of the novel. It feels like you're actually reading a real woman's diary entries rather than just a letter to somebody. Before beginning a summary of the book, I should probably introduce some of the most important characters and their relationships to each other. For starters, the protagonist of the story and the narrator of the book is Celie, who writes letters to God as a way to cope with the hardships in her life. Her sister Nettie is another important character to the book, and she writes her own letters to Celie. Celie's husband is named Mr. Blank, like it's written Mr. Blank, like it's a blank line. His real name is Arthur, we find out later, but I'm gonna call him Mr. Blank because that's what she calls him. He's another important character because he's one of the biggest causes of pain in Celie's life. Shug Avery is another big character because she is almost the opposite of Mr. Blank, as she is Celie's source of happiness, and she supports her through her hardships. Shug Avery is also the woman that Mr. Blank actually loves rather than Celie, which creates tension in the story. Some other minor characters, not minor, but more minor characters, are Harpo, who's the son of Mr. Blank before he remarried to Celie, Sophia, who is the wife of Harpo, and Alfonso, who is Celie's father. Also, sorry I keep looking down here, this is my script because I cannot talk straight up without going on tangents, so that's why. Anyways, the story is kind of hard to summarize in its entirety because of the way it's written, because the diary entries don't always directly relate to the main plot line of the story. Some of them kind of go on tangents about what's happening and tangents about her life, and are just more examples of all of the hardships she faces, so it's, kind of like all of these things build into one storyline kind of story. I'll try my best to give a generalized summary without any spoilers. The story begins when Alfonso rapes Celie. It's literally on the first page, and it kicks off the story in Celie's, literal cycle of hardships in her life, non-stop. Hey bud, stop making noise. This is why Celie writes letters to God, because Alfonso tells her that she can't tell anybody about his actions. The only person she can tell is God. Celie and Nettie are raised very different. Stop, dude. Celie and Nettie are raised very differently from each other because Celie is not allowed to go to school because Alfonso believes that she is less than Nettie. So Nettie's allowed to go to school, she's very educated, and this kind of creates a difference in their two characters. As Nettie grows up, she starts to court Mr. Blank, and eventually he asks Alfonso for her hand in marriage. Alfonso says no, however, and instead gives Celie to Mr. Blank to marry. Celie and Mr. Blank's relationship is very abusive, as he makes her do all of his work, raise his children from his prior marriage, and also beats her. Celie and Nettie are very close during the beginning of the story, as Nettie lives with Celie to escape Alfonso. But eventually she has to leave because Mr. Blank tells her she has to leave. So she leaves and promises to write to Celie, but Celie never gets her letters, so she believes that Nettie is dead or missing. During this time, Celie raises Mr. Blank's children and grows very close to his son, Harpo. Harpo tells Celie about his love life and about this woman, Sophia, who is very strong and very assertive. Eventually they do get married and they move into a house in the back of Mr. Blank's property, which causes Sophia and Celie to become very close. Harpo and Sophia's relationship breaks down though, as Harpo tries to be more like Mr. Blank, his father, and wants Sophia to submit to him, which is not her character. This causes tension in their marriage and also makes Sophia an inspiration to Celie because she shows her how to be strong. Also during this time, Mr. Blank's past lover, Shug Avery, comes to stay with him and Celie after getting very sick. She was a jazz singer and she got sick on the road, and so she moves back in with Mr. Blank. While Shug treats Celie terribly at first, they become extremely close, as Shug is Celie's biggest source of happiness through her pain. Hey, stop. Shug empowers Celie, she compliments Celie, and they are almost lovers. I mean, it's very heavily implied, not explicitly said, but they are. Shug discovers one day that Mr. Blank had a letter addressed to Celie hidden in his pocket, and so she takes it to Celie. They find out that this letter, and many more that Mr. Blank had hidden, are from Nettie, who writes letters to Celie on a missionary trip in Africa. The discovery of these stolen letters causes drama and change in Celie's life, which is seen as the novel progresses. I'm not sure I can say much more without giving away a lot of spoilers, but the novel does a great job of highlighting the importance of womanhood, love, and personal growth. I really enjoyed the novel because as a girl, I think it's amazing to see a book that highlights how strong connections between women are. A lot of the novel focuses on how different women help Celie break free from her cycle of trauma. I also really love that the book makes Celie's growth proof that happiness is achievable for everyone, which is something I really stand by. If you like a book that makes you feel bad while reading it and feel really good at the end, then you would love this book. Me and Maverick give the book a 7 out of 10. I definitely recommend it, especially for girls, and thank you for listening. Say bye.